You gotta get it together, Scotty. Don't do that, because then I gotta do that. Okay. It's for... We want to do this for people that are in the NICU, parents, to give them hope and to, like, keep the faith and encouragement to keep on keeping on.
Yeah, I think that's the same for me too. You know, at the end of the day, whether a lot of people listen to this or not, I think that people that are in the NICU can...
The most and the biggest thing for me, I think, was when Instagram and having that hashtag that I could click on the X24 weekers and get to see them as kids. And they looked normal and they were fine. And that gave me the hope that, and the hope and the faith to know that he can be okay.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and we still haven't done a little book or whatnot, but when I first was in there, one of the things that I think helped me is Christopher. Yeah, I'm looking at your eyes watering. Like,
we're just gonna keep.
This is gonna be hard. This is gonna be hard. We haven't even started talking about anything.
Any mascara on.
So there's gonna be residual emotions, no matter what.
Yeah, because Christopher's book, and we get to see him.
And then you're looking at, and you're like, oh my God, a kid went through all of this? Yeah. No way. This is like crazy.
Yeah. And that's something that, because it's so unknown, not spoke of hardly. Like when we got there, we never seen a baby that small. Never. I've never seen a baby that small.
Never heard.
I've never even realized, like, you can, like, the picture that you got when he was born, and he looked with me, and he looked like all right, but then when you got there, I mean, he had gotten a lot sicker from the time of the picture and when you got there, but he looked bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely some videos and pictures where, like, I mean, he was holding on, literally holding on for his life.
Like, I think when you saw him, he was like gray, not so swollen, like being from after being born, and like the old man effect took in really quick.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it took like 13 hours.
Yeah. So I don't know. Okay, so if this is the Move podcast, I don't know if it's going to be the Move podcast or if it's going to be a Sights on Sage podcast, because I've been going back and forth. So maybe I'll just
or both.
Yeah, or both. Yeah,
because it could go in both directions. Because we just had to keep on moving forward.
Yeah.
And Sage is another direction, but also.
Right. Well, so thank you everybody for okay. So thank you everybody for tuning in. If you're listening to the Move podcast, I'm your host, Scotty Carlisle, and I couldn't do it without my host, which is sitting on the couch next to me, my wife. So she's badass, and we've gone through some interesting things, and so one of them is our son, who was born and he only had a 10% chance of survival, and it is a crazy story. So I wanted to get her sitting next to me so we could talk about it, because I feel like it's a story that people need to hear, that can help them, especially people that are in the NICU. Now, other people that are not in the NICU, that are just having a hard time with life or struggling or depressed or whatever it is, I think this story can help that too, because this little kid went through some crazy stuff, and so did our whole family, and then even the nurses and our friends and everybody. It affected everybody that's in our life. So I wanted to sit down and talk about it.
Finally, after 10 years. We've been wanting to do this for a long time.
Yeah. 10 years. And again, it's like...
Yesterday. Like,
right.
every bit of it.
So, I wanted to start out from the beginning, right? You wanted to go to the Ellen DeGeneres show. It was for Mother's Day, right? Because the year before that, was it Mar? Went to the Ellen show? Or who was it? One of your friends?
No, no, I think it was Jessica that went.
Somebody went and got, like, a bunch of stuff. Like, they gave her...
Yeah, it was Jessica.
Oh, okay. So, and then you wanted to go to Ellen...
Because they were doing that, yeah, like then.
Mm-hmm. And then did you have to send something in, or how did you...
I think we, like, signed up online.
Got it.
And then, like, maybe had to put a picture up.
And you needed...
I think that was that picture.
And you waited, right, for a little while. And, you know, you were waiting on a response because you were hoping that you were get... It was like a big deal. Like, she literally really wanted to go to Ellen. And so anyway, fast forward... Well, I guess you didn't get to go to Ellen no matter what, even if they would have given you the option, because...
Yeah.
Because what happened?
I don't remember. I don't hardly remember all of that. But, obviously Sage was born.
Right.
Yeah, there's no way we could have made that happen.
So, do you remember when you first started feeling something? Now, I had just gone to New York.
I dropped you off at the airport.
Mm-hmm.
Your flight was delayed. And on my way back, I had Preston with me. We stopped to go get boxes that were, like, in the... Like, they were, like almost like a bookcase filing at Home Depot. And I went to go pull it. And I remember turning and, like... feeling my back hurt, but I think I thought that I hurt my back then, but I think that I had probably had, because of the motion that my back hurt. And I just thought, dang, I really twisted my back. Then I went and met and dropped Preston off. Got home, and back up. I went to, maybe Preston wasn't with me. I dropped you off, and then I went to go get him from kindergarten. And I was so freaking hungry. I got, I think it was Taco Bell, and I ordered so much food. and I remember my mom saying, like, when she had us, like, that day that she was like, she was going to have us, that she was so freaking hungry, ordered way too many things off the menu. That was me that day. Then got the boxes and then went and dropped Preston off with Lori. And then went home, and then I laid down, or I went and had more food. That was my last meal, was my Nella wafers and banana pudding. It was so... and I sent a picture to Brian. And he was having tacos, and I was like, here's mine is way better than yours. And,
your brother.
Yeah. And I sent him a picture, and then I'm like, God, my freaking stomach's hurting me. And it wasn't my stomach. I mean,
it was.
Well, yeah.
I guess kind of, huh? Kind of. Not really your stomach, but.
And then, I called labor and delivery, and normally, like, I would not, I always call my mom, and, for whatever reason, I was like, I need to call labor and delivery, because this pain is weird, and they tell me, lay on your side, drink water, and you're probably having Braxton Hicks. So I lay on my side, and it's, like, not calming
And Braxton
down.
Hicks false
labor. Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, so they were just thinking I'm dehydrated and you need to drink water and lay on your side. So I did that. I drank water for a while, and it was, like, not calming down. So then I called my mom. Of course, and then Lindsay's home. She can't drive yet. I called my mom. She just gets out of the shower, and she's like, great. I just took a shower and all right, I'm going to be there. I'm going to go pick you up. So, she came and picked me up and Lindsay stayed. And then Candace came and got Lindsay, like, to go, like, stay there with her.
Mm-hmm, your sister.
And
Lindsay's my daughter.
And,
how old was Lindsay at the time?
She was,
16? 15?
She was, I want to say she was 15.
Oh, 14 because she's 10. Sage is 10. Okay.
Sage is 10. Oh, right.
24
yeah.
now. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
14.
So, my mom brings me, and I remember the drive there. I was, laying the chair down. Traffic, I think the freeway was closed. Because we took the side streets next to the 15, and I remember, getting to El Cerrito and, Temescal. Is it Temescal? Yeah. El Cerrito and Temescal. And, being in the most pain compared to, all of the kids. That's the one that I remember the most. And being in the car and having the most pain going down the side of the streets. And then we got there. They also didn't want me to they didn't want me to go to Riverside Kaiser. Fontana was moving their unit, the NICU unit. So, no, there was, no good options nearby. But my mom was like, no, we're going to Riverside, and they're going to take you. So we go to Riverside. And I don't hardly look pregnant. And they're just have me waiting on the side. And I'm, in this little chair, curled up, on the side, because sitting in the wheelchair that I was in was so, because I'm sitting,
Mm-hmm.
So it's, giving me more pressure. So I needed to, be less crunchy, you know?
Yeah, elongate your torso.
And, I remember that also being, the most pain when I'm in that chair, and the contractions were so freaking bad. And they were, they weren't taking it serious for sure. Until they saw me, I think, in labor and delivery. And they were then they were okay, go brush me over to room 3. And, they pretty much got me all, hooked up right away. After... Sorry. It was just, I think I was 4 or 6 centimeters dilated. I was ready to have, my water didn't break. Still, obviously, because they had to break it and then I had them. But, they gave me the magnesium. I don't know if they gave me something else. But, to try and slow it down. And I think it went from, every 3 minutes to, 5 minutes. So then it was okay, we're doing better. And then that's when the peds, or the doctor came in and, tells me, all right, if you have this baby tonight, he has a 10% chance of surviving. He won't live a normal life. And he's going to have birth defects. What do you want to do? Do you want to let nature take its course? Or do you want us to resuscitate? And that's when my mom called you. And she went outside. And outside the room. And I could hear her. And I'd see her in the hallway talking. And her doubts on... this might not be a good idea. This isn't for everybody. But then you're no. Do everything. And you're just across the freaking country. In, the hardest spot, because work is pulling you in every direction. They need their stuff done I think how many days were you up for at that point? Like 3 days?
Yeah. Yeah, straight, because we had that.
Event.
It was a guerrilla marketing campaign for eBay. And so when they got there, when I got there the next day, we were supposed to have start filming at, it was going to be at 3 o'clock, and then they changed it to 10 a.m. But the truck that was going to be on camera had gone through the United States, you know, from California all the way to New York, and then it went through some windstorms and got damaged. So it had to be fixed. So there was literally like the only thing that we could do. There was a 24-hour hardware store called
The crack.
yeah,
The
it was
crack
like
house or something.
it was like the crack house. No, it was called the oh man, the what was it called? The Nut House.
There you go.
It was the Nut House, and it was open 24 hours, and so we had to get a bunch of materials
In New York.
In New York, yeah, and then literally worked all throughout the night, and then got it fixed, right? Just literally in the nick of time. I mean, we were supposed to be there at 10 a.m. We literally got there at maybe 3 minutes till 10, and then put the last sticker on, and we were ready to go. So we pulled off a minor miracle there. And then it was an all-day guerrilla marketing thing. So we just kept going until it was like probably 9 or 10 o'clock at night or later. And then the guy who was the videographer, Jesse, who actually we have a podcast, we talked about this whole thing. So he was in the room with me. He was doing voiceover stuff. And he knew that I was like, I'd been working forever. And then now he was there when I got the phone call first it was from you. No, it was your mom. No, we talked first. And then that's when okay, have your mom take you. Then you talk to her. And then your mom called me and said, oh man, that's oof. So I was about ready for bed. I was really, really tired, beat up. It was a long day, stressful couple days with no sleep. And then that's when your mom called, and she's like, Scotty, the doctor said that if Sage is born, he's only got a 10% chance to live. And there's a very strong chance that he's going to have birth defects, and there's a very stronger chance that he's going to be blind. And they had mentioned if you want to let nature run its course. And that's some emotional stuff. And I'm like, no, you do everything you can, or tell him to do everything you can, to save my son. Because what if he lives? What if he's blind? People have blind kids all the time. People have kids that have issues, and that's the way it is. And if that's what's meant to be, then so be it. So, and then, you know, we hung up, and then, you know, you just sit with that for a second, and it's like, fuck. Like, that is the time and place for that word. For people that don't cuss, you know, that's the time that you're going to say that. And because I had absolutely zero chance of helping you in any way. I was 3,000 miles away, completely helpless to do anything. And
yeah, it's not a place that any of us want to be in, because that helplessness is, like, I think the hardest thing. Like, because you want to be there, you want to help, you want to do everything
hold
you can.
your hand, or...
And yeah, and you couldn't. And that was probably harder than me being there where I was, you know?
Right. Well, I'm sure that's debatable. I'd have probably rather been where I was than in your situation.
Because the helplessness is, that's tough.
So the only thing that a person can do in that moment is pray out to God, right? Like, if you don't believe in God, you're praying to God, hoping that there is a God and that you're doing a Hail Mary and he's hearing your prayer and he's going to say, all right, you know what? I'm going to help you out. And I literally, cause Jesse was in the room and I went out to the lobby, and that's where, because I was losing my shit. Like, how do I react to this? What am I supposed to do? How can I help? Oh my God, I don't know what to do. Like, and then I remember calling my mom too and like crying to her, and then she's like, I don't even remember what she said. I don't even remember, but I'm praying to God, please God, I'll do everything I can to be a good man, and I'll do everything I can to do what's right and help people, and just please save my son. Please don't let him be born. Please, please, please. And all I could do is wait and then, talk to you. And then I remember talking to you and you're like, hey, because the magnesium slowed your contractions down, but it slowed you down too. You're like, yeah, I'm just here. I don't you like, you're cruising.
It worked for a little bit, long enough for you to find the. Did you go to the airport and find a flight, or did you get a flight before going to?
That was also a nightmare because the hotel was in my name, and then I couldn't. And then I had to pay for my room, but then my card wasn't working or something, so they wouldn't let me check out. And then I had issues with the taxi to get to the hotel or to get to the airport. Finally, after going through a bunch of hoops, I ended up getting to the airport, and that's when you called me. I was outside of the airport, and you're like, Sage is coming. And I'm like, shit. Let me go through the security checkpoint and I'll call you right back. And then I go through, I put all my stuff and go through there. And then that's when the nerves hit me and hit my stomach. And I was like, okay, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll go to the bathroom first and then I'll call it right back. And then I go
Did you have a flight yet?
Did I have a flight? Yeah, because I think I booked it like online or something. I don't honestly don't remember.
Yeah, I have no clue.
But so then I'm going to the airport toilet in the bathroom, and it's real echoey in the bathroom, right? And there's people talking and it's echoing and then flushing toilets.
I don't know if I realized that then at all. I feel like normally I could recognize if you're in the bathroom.
Yeah, well, you were under a little duress at the time, so.
I don't feel like I was that far out of it.
No, I don't think you aren't that far out of it, but I don't think, like, listening to the background was something.
You were on speakerphone, so.
Oh, I was?
Yeah. So.
Got it. Well, so what ended up happening is, I'm going to the bathroom, and then my pants start vibrating. And I'm sitting on the toilet, and I'm feeling my pants vibrate, and I'm like, oh, no, not right now. Not while I'm on the toilet. Like, come on. Yeah. But, of course, I had to answer the phone, and then I'm, like, sitting here, and then I pick up the phone, like, hello?
Yeah.
And then you're just like, like you didn't even say
I think
anything.
I was in the middle of probably a contraction, and my mom had called you back, and everybody was probably like all set, ready. NICU, labor and delivery. And he was fumbled, for sure. He was like a football. But that room was so full of so many people. And then, like, she probably then was when she broke my water, and then literally came, 3 pushes, and then he
came out like a slide.
And I remember her like doing something like that, yeah. And and then them grabbing him, running him over to the table, everybody crowding the table. I don't even know what was going on with myself at that time, because you know they gotta like get the bag out, and but then they're like super busy at the like the baby bed thing. It wasn't the isolette. It was like the one that they normally have in the room when you have like a regular baby. And they I'm looking at my mom, and you can just see her like on the armrest of the bed, and the look on her face, like, it's not looking good. And they call the code pink. And then Mary, who is somebody that I met from we were gonna like do a design or build her pool, so I'd been to her house to like get a like, I don't even know if I was doing the designs like I do, but she knew my mom. She knew me because I'd been to her house. And then later she tells us that she had looked in and saw us, and then had to go back out because when they called the code pink, she was the anesthesiologist who is like the one to intubate, because they were trying to intubate him and they couldn't get it. And then
And that means basically put a tube down your throat because you can't breathe, so that's breathing for you.
So when she saw us, she was like, oh shit, had to go in the hallway, get herself together. They ended up bringing him out. They didn't finish intubating him there, so they just took him. Lindsay and Candace were in the parking lot, like just parking, trying to figure out like where and what to do, because they didn't know what was happening. So they also got there like right after Sage. They were probably in the parking lot when Sage was born. They took him out, so I didn't even really see him. When he was born.
And then we were on the phone. So I'm in the toilet, on the toilet. I wasn't in the toilet. I was on the toilet listening, and I'm here. That's all I could say. And then whenever they took him away, obviously I was freaked out because I know, like, he couldn't breathe. His heart was beating.
They called the code pink.
Yeah, and then what are you gonna do? And then my flight starts boarding, and then I go there, and I'm like,
we still hadn't heard what's happening with him.
Right, and I'm like on the phone freaking out, and then I asked I asked the flight attendant, who, I was like, hey, my son was just born, and I don't know if he's gonna live. Can we just wait a little bit longer? So I can find out. And she's like, she felt bad. She's like, sorry, sir, but you have to board. You can be the last person, but our flight has to leave on time. And so I'm like hoping that he came back and I'd find out and that he would be okay and whatever. And again, I'd cross-eyed from being tired and stressed out, and then had to board the flight, not knowing if when I landed he was going to be alive or not.
How long was that flight?
5-hour flight.
That was terrible.
That
like,
was
no contact,
terrible.
No clue. Like that stress you had to have on that. Besides being exhausted and tired. And now I can imagine how.
And it's one thing, man, like my son. Your mind goes in so many different directions, and again, I'm praying to God, like, please God, just save him. I'll do everything I can, and I landed, and that's when I found out
they were gonna, when you landed, the ambulance had just, so that's like so I had him at like 2. Right before 2, I think it was. It was about 5 or 6, I want to say, when they called me, and they said, and you hadn't landed yet. And they called the ambulance had called, like, I don't even know what phone I talked to, but I think it was like the phone in the labor and delivery unless somebody gave me a phone. And they said, okay, we need to transport him because the hospital you're at doesn't have everything that he needs. They can't take care of a 24-weeker.
So when you had him though, was it a nurse that made some calls and was like on it? What happened with that?
I totally, yeah, when shit got real, before, probably, I think it was probably when, I don't know if it was before I had him. I think it was before I had him. And it was like happening. Christine from the I think she's from the labor and delivery. Yeah. She was labor and delivery. And she made shit happen. Like when people weren't really knowing where to go and whatever, she was yelling at everybody, making sure, and not in like a, but like
I get it
in
now.
a, we're getting shit done, go do this, you're doing that, and like everybody was where they need to be. And if it weren't for her, I think that she's the one who probably called the code. She made shit happen, and literally without her making shit happen, she was a good leader. She's who needed to be there. Because for sure, he wouldn't be here. So then going back to the well, then he's born, and they got Mary in there for the intubating. Well, they tried. Then you got on the plane. In between that is when the ambulance people called me, and they telling me, okay, it's gonna take us 30 minutes to get to you from where we are. And then by the time we get there, it's gonna be like prime time traffic. So for sure, we're gonna be in traffic for 2 hours. Or if we wait a little bit, we can get there in like an hour. So, but in the meantime, if he stays at the hospital that he's at and he needs something, he could die because they don't have what he needs. But if we're on our 2-hour drive to the hospital and something happens and we don't have it in the ambulance, he could die on the way to the ambulance, or on the way to the hospital. So I'm like, well, neither of those sound good. and I just figured, like, my best guess was like, come now, and why are we gonna wait for either? So they came, took him up. It did take him like 30 minutes to get there, and then they were able to send me in the ambulance behind him, a little bit after him, so that I could have the room in Downey for a little bit.
Well, I remember landing and finding out that he had to be transported, and that, so I had a 2.5 hour layover, and I remember finding out that he was so fragile that he might not make the ride. But if you didn't go, then, there would very well be something that they wouldn't be able to take care of him.
What do they call it? The honeymoon phase?
Mm-hmm.
And It doesn't last too long.
That's basically when, because, our ancestors didn't have a hospital that had all of the right stuff. So our bodies are created, we have basically, I don't know if it's adrenaline or what it is, but when babies are first born, there's a period of time when they're like
Good.
all of their they're good. Their immune system's up, so you know.
Because they have what I give them,
Mm-hmm.
and then it like fades away, and you could see that from when you got there that he looked good, pink, nice color, chunky-ish. The water weight it was obviously a water weight. And then to when you saw him and he looked dark, skinny, wrinkly.
Well, that
Sick.
layover again, I'm waiting and 2.5 hours, and I had to fly out again, not knowing if he could arrive to the hospital like safe or not. So it was like the first flight was horrible, and then the second flight was also horrible. And so anyway, then I finally landed and then found out that he was okay and that you guys made it. Yeah.
And that was just the beginning.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if we're gonna make it through the rest of the story.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a recurring theme, and that is that the people that were in our circle, that was helping Sage.
It was.
I can't even talk about it. It's so like that's such a important part of everything, is that the people that came out, that stepped up, like Christine, and that literally that's why he's alive, because of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that fear from if he won't make it from Riverside to Downey, and then the time it took from down to get from Riverside to Downey, and like how much fear we had because it was going to take so long, and then hearing months later that from Dr. Gandhi, that he had said when he got there, why did they transport him here? His brain's going to be mush. And what an amazing thing that we had traffic and it took us 2 hours to get there, because that was the huge, terrible thing that was like the greatest thing that could be for his outcome.
And that's the other recurring theme, is that, oh shit, this is happening. No.
Terrible. Yeah.
But then after, thank God that happened. Because
thank God for all that traffic. Thank God this happened. Yeah, that literally happened over and over and over. The fear, and then the that was terrible, but it had to be terrible because what could have been worse than that was the great thing that happened. Not like we thought it was.
Do you remember when you first saw him at
Riverside?
The hospital? Not Riverside.
Oh yeah, when
Downey?
I walked in there, and everybody was everywhere, and I didn't know where, and still at that point I had hardly seen him, because in Riverside I just went to go see him before they took him on the ambulance. So like I had like seen him, got that little video, when he looked good and healthy, to when I get into Downey, they got me transported. I think I had to pee so bad on the ambulance ride. Like that was my I must go pee. Then I go into the NICU. I didn't know where the heck I was, because I've obviously never been there. Go in, wash my hands. They walk me how everything's gonna. I don't know who brought me in, but someone came and got me, and then brought me into the NICU, and then showed me how to scrub my hands and be clean. And when I walk in, and it was still hecticness. They were getting him set. Dr. Ganosa was admitting him. And then I remember, I just remember all the hecticness of them getting him settled, the ambulance, the NICU people, and then them wondering if I am the mom,
over and over.
You don't look pregnant and
Over
you're young
and over.
looking.
And my adrenaline was so like ready to go for a run. And I don't know if I ever felt too much pain or like how some of those moms were in there, like in the wheelchairs and really messed up. I remember feeling like so thankful that I didn't get that, because that would have just added to, I can imagine what it would be like to like, I have problems and he has problems. Yeah, so I'm really thankful that I was able to look like I didn't just have a baby, but I mean, energetically also, like having that, like, I'm gonna conquer the world feeling in whatever.
I remember when I finally got there, and then again, it's like not knowing what to expect, and then you have to wash your hands for a long time because they're so fragile, and any little bacteria or anything that gets to them could destroy them.
Yeah.
So anyway, going through there, and then I remember, and it's like locked doors, so people can't just go in there. So it's like a bank inside a mall. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a bank inside a mall.
NICU is like a bank inside the mall. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's locked up. They let you in, right? The doors, you can go in.
What is it called when you would go into the back part of the bank and you have your like lockbox in there?
Oh yeah, the vault.
Like that.
Yeah.
Like your say the babies are like in the vault.
Yeah, like the safety deposit boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember being led down the hallway, and it was a really long hallway, and then as you walk, there's
The
rows of isolates going down. Yeah, the pods, right? And then depending on where we were, but I'll never forget. So walking up, and then he was number 23, and
I think it started at like 60 or 40.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
there
like
are 6
60.
babies in each unit or pod, and then how many were there? There was like 2 on that side. The
the rooms that were
No.
whenever they had to be
the sicker
but by
when
themselves.
Sage was what is it when he got sick
Yeah. Quarantine. The
Quarantine
quarantine
room, yeah.
rooms.
yeah.
Well, and then I looked number 23, and then I walked and I looked into the isolette, and then I saw his little body, like, and I'm just looking at him like, wow, this is my son. And he was at that point just limp, like wasn't moving.
And intubated, which that is like a terrible I mean, great thing though too, thank God they were able to intubate him, but also like to see that, it's like his whole life was only possible by that machine. Like without that, he also would not
Be here.
Yeah.
And because at that stage, the mucus inside their lungs isn't ready.
The
So it's like,
elasticity, there's not, the elasticity isn't there, right? So like the ability to do that,
breathe, go, yeah, it's like,
yeah, which is like where the asthma comes in. Still, I feel like now though, he's pretty good.
when I ran with him and Preston, and we're running around the block, and I'm like, and then I'm thinking that I need to run slower for Sage and he's like running slower for me, and I'm like, you can slow down. So he's like, no, that's okay, Dad. And I'm like, okay, like, so and we were all breathing heavy, but he's good. So so fast forward, he's 10 years old and he's good, but the journey going through this whole thing is just crazy. So, but I just remember, and he had like a hairy back, and he was intubated, and then there were just tubes coming out of everywhere, and then he had the little glasses that looked like sunglasses, and he was
For the belly light.
yeah. And so he had the bilirubin light, and the bilirubin light is for jaundice, right? Because when they're born that early, the
liver's not functioning right.
Right. So that is supposed to break up things that the liver normally digests. And then his skin was translucent.
And his nipples were like pretty much non-existent. His belly button was like sort of there. His ears were not formed.
They were just
like
flaps of skin
formed.
that were like
his eyes are
flat on
shut,
his
like how would you say it? Like
fused.
Yeah, fused shut. His little toes and fingers. He had little nails. Like I thought that was pretty amazing that he already had little nails on his fingers and toes.
Yeah. That was, and then I thought one of the craziest things I thought, because when they're so small, you can't just like thread an IV into their blood, right, into their veins, because their skin's translucent, so they turn down the lights and they find the vein with the flashlight by putting it underneath their arm, and their skin's translucent, so they can see where the veins are,
and
so they can see the stick.
Thank God for Nora.
And yeah, what about Nora?
Her reputation to be able to put an IV in a fly. And she could. And she put any IVs, all of his picks, and she owned that job.
So,
like that was nobody touching her baby. And she, when soon after the like 15th one, actually it was the 15th one we just saw that, right?
13th. So
13th?
he had 13.
Oh,
so
15 blood
transfusions.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but the 13th PICC line, no. Okay, so before that, so everybody knows what a PICC line is, because I didn't know what a PICC line was
Right.
before. It's a line that they put an IV into your arm or wherever it is, sometimes your head, sometimes your foot, wherever it is, and they thread a catheter all the way through your vein, and it goes to your supravena cava, which is your main artery for your heart that supplies your and basically it basically is it puts in the nutrients.
Like that's the PICC line's set to place right above the heart, because then it gets whatever medicine that they're putting in instantly distributes to every part of the body, like instantly. Which is why you want the PICC line.
Yeah, and so PICC lines, that's crazy. And then they typically don't like to change PICC lines, because imagine that, right? And then the whole process.
So all of his veins after 13 were so hard to get through.
And that's just PICC lines. So he also had to have IVs on top of that, right?
Yeah.
Was it over 100 IVs?
Yeah,
and so
those would just go everywhere.
Yeah, and whoever isn't familiar with how that works, if you've given a lot of IVs, you understand, but once you put an IV in a vein, like, they break, and they
Scar tissue.
Yeah, they create scar tissue, and then it makes it a lot harder.
Yeah, so even now, getting an IV in him, they have the hardest time.
Yeah, you gotta have a phlebotomist that is really good in order to do it. Normal people can't do it. And basically, at that point, he was being kept alive by the breathing apparatus, where it was 100% oxygen, right? And then it was a constant pressure. So it was the CPAP, right?
They were trying to wean it down as quickly as possible to get it to the lowest amount, because with it being at 100% is why they are prone to go blind.
Right, because what happens is your body only takes a certain amount of oxygen, and when you're constantly putting the oxygen in, it creates free radicals, because your body's not ingesting 100% of what they're putting in. So these free radicals turn into be like free radicals, and then they go and they're like demolition crews, and then they go bump into everything.
So the babies live, but they found that. Do you remember when we heard they found that out? Like, thank God also that whatever research and figuring out, like, hey, all the babies are living at this oxygen at 100%, but they're all also going blind. Like, what is it, like probably 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
And then, so that was the one thing that was like, as they're explaining, hey, this is what's happening, right? And so my coping mechanism was
understand everything. And I was like, I want to hear nothing. And
yeah.
and they're like, are you a doctor?
Well, because I wanted to know what every word is that I'm
and
reading.
you did, yeah.
I did, because I was there. Like,
yeah, and like, how are we, like, your way of not feeling helpless is to know every piece of information and not just like hear it and like, okay, you were
Yeah.
like, so
Asking
explain
questions.
this, and then that was like Melinda explaining and like teaching us everything that she could teach us was like great, because then well, me not yet, but you where you could soak it all in, and that could be your way to parent, because at that spot we aren't able to really be
yeah, a parent.
normal parents.
It's like through the glass door. And that's the other thing, because of all of the intubation and the tubes and everything, you can't pick your kid up and, you know, throw him like you want to. you can pick him up like this.
No, we had to hold his head and hold his feet, and that's about it. Because, you know, naturally you want to like do the head thing, or like no like soft anything. That was like a major don't softly do anything. It was just firm.
You're right.
On his head, firm on his legs, and I think that was what they would connect that with, was like the wrapping him up, was like being with like trying to give him the feeling of being inside still. So like his arms would be wrapped in the blanket, and then like so he could touch
Fold
his
it
face,
up like a burrito,
and so that he could touch his face. Not where his hands weren't able to touch, but like where he was able to touch his face, like he would naturally do
in the womb.
Yeah, and those were the things that I think helped him to, like, with the primary care.
Well, and then the other thing was, obviously, because he couldn't breathe, then he was being breathed for the free radicals they talked about. But the other thing was his ability, his heart, right, and his ability to circulate the blood. And so, you know, when we got, okay, so first, before that, what they do is every hour, on the hour, they would come and they would have a needle.
Poke his heel on his foot.
Poke his foot, poke his fingers.
It's mostly his foot, I think.
Did they? I'm sure they poked his fingers too. Because he got calf fingers and toes.
But that's not where
that's not where it comes from.
No, they were doing the foot. And then they would unwrap it, and, you know, it'd still be bleeding on his foot. That was, like, the main spot. If you look at him, you can see him still.
Yeah, okay, so...
You can see his scars.
I was thinking his fingers, too. But I remember the feet, because it would be a point every hour that...
They'd unwrap it, and it's still bleeding, and they just squeeze it out. Mm-hmm. And then with that...
But hold on a second. Think about this, where your kid is getting poked every hour, and you have to just see every hour, and it's like minor torture. But anyway, that's freaking hard to take.
Yeah, because you don't want to see him constantly be poked, and because we couldn't even hear him cry yet.
So that's You remember when, of course,
3 weeks. It was 3 weeks, and then I finally got to actually hold him and hear him.
And so the first time when you hear, and I just remember when people were complaining about their kids
crying, and I'm like, do you know how lucky you are to hear your kid? Like, that means your kid's lungs are strong, that your baby's not on critical life support. Like, there's so many positives to getting to hear them cry, because we hadn't heard him cry. We hadn't held him. We hadn't, like, nothing that's like if you can hear your kid cry, you are in the, like, at least more in the green than not.
Yep. all the little things.
Yeah.
And then again, you couldn't hold him normally.
But the heart thing, so his heart's not pumping because that hole wasn't closing.
So what happens with your heart? And so anyway, I guess poking, so they're always checking the blood oxygen, right? And there's all these different tests that they do, like every hour, every 2 hours, respiratory.
Wait.
Yeah.
Because of checking his blood, until he was 32 weeks, because he's 24 weeks, he doesn't make his own blood.
Right.
So as he's giving them drops of blood, which is a ton for that size baby that doesn't produce blood yet, then that's when also...
And that's when I found that the blood is made from the bone marrow. Like, what? I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Is that... And then the bones are not very, like...
Right, so rickets, they're like bendy, they don't have the calcium, and they're not hardened yet.
That was also from the medicine that they were giving is it the remember they would give him the Omegavan, and then they gave him the other one. Other one, Omegavan, and then lipids, I think it was. I think lipids, if he was just straight lipids, that would have been the bone thing. I don't remember what it was. But, hold on. Because the heart wasn't pumping the blood. Which was when he got the cath. How did you say it?
Cath.
Because I've always said cath. Cath.
Right, because it sounded like it, right? But it is cath.
And I'm bad at that. I make my own words. Cath.
And
toes,
basically...
the tips of his fingers and the tips of his toes turn purple, and they're pretty much dying off. That's what they're doing, is they're dying. And you could see... They put nitrous on it, was it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that helped, right?
Not too much.
And then... But they kept on doing that. And then, like, the procedure to put that on, because that was, like, a procedure. It was like we can't touch that. That's like, I think, what they give people when they have heart attacks or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Nitrogen?
Nitrous.
Nitrous?
I don't know, that's what they gave me. I could have also made that word too. But I remember being nitrous.
Yeah.
If it's something in the direction of.
I'm at a loss right now. Well,
they put that stuff on his fingertips and his toes. And then they, like, put, like, gauze on it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't think I was able, like, to, like, touch him or anything then. But that led into his, conversation of his first surgery. That he was potentially, we were working towards. He was, that was probably, like, 4 days old, and they were reading his charts. And remember, it was, like, off the chart of no way is this 21, was it like 21,000?
2,100. So you're supposed to be around 69.
Okay. Or
he was like 2,174.
Yeah, and they were like, no way, we're gonna rerun this test because this isn't right. And then it came back again, and it was still.
And basically, what was happening is it's a patent ductus arteriosus, which is a little hole in the heart. And what was happening is, as the heart pumps, it's supposed to, there's a wall that separates the oxygenated blood from the non-oxygenated blood. And that hole was allowing the non-oxygenated blood to get into the into the compartment where the oxygenated blood was. And then when it would pump, the organs were getting basically dirty blood. So not purely oxygenated, it was mixed. And then that set in a whole domino effect of other problems that we experienced literally over the next 7 months.
So we could see, like, the fingertips and the toes as an external thing, but we couldn't see was the internal things that it was also damaging. So we were then staying. Were we staying in the
Yeah.
The room though now.
So at the NICU, for situations like our situation, where it's like an emergency and parents live wherever,
Far, yeah.
they have rooms inside the NICU, which is cool. And I don't think all the NICUs have that, but Downey had it. So thank goodness. And we were able to literally stay in the hospital, and so like in the middle of the night, and that's where me and Melinda, like I would be there.
It was like
we had these long.
That night, I think it was like 3:00. We were up in the morning. We stayed there and didn't realize how late it was. But Melinda was giving all the details about the Indocin or the PDA ligation.
So basically, when they found out that was so off the charts, they're like, okay, look, this is going to be your first major decision, and it's either you're going to take this medicine called Indocin, or we're going to have to basically have surgery, heart surgery.
Which heart surgery sounds terrible.
Yes.
But Indocin, when you hear all about, because you think, oh, take some medicine and that sounds great. But then when she explains Indocin and the damage and the long-term damage and the death that can occur from that.
So basically Indocin is like a steroid, and then with this steroid comes side effects, mainly NEC, which is necrotizing enterocolitis, which is basically part of your intestines basically die off, and
it like burns holes in it. I remember, like it would, as it's going through, it could burn. I picture it like acid, like burning through things.
Right, and that was a side effect. Or then you have to hear all the side effects on the surgery, right?
So yeah, where he could bleed out on the table.
You could slice a vocal cord.
Yeah.
All different kinds of issues where you could, and so it's like, all right, well, we have to make, and it's one thing, hindsight, but when you get that decision that has to be made, like we were freaking out about it. Like, what the hell are we going to do?
But we finally, at the end of talking to Melinda, like she totally like helped us decide what was right. And we were pretty confident. Like, we're doing
the surgery.
Because
also, when we're looking at this NEC and Googling it the night before and seeing how, like, terrible, what you said.
Yeah, the eviler one was the NEC. The one with the most
because
risk.
They could also get NEC, right? And then have those issues plus the hole in the heart. Wouldn't
work, yeah. Like, the odds that it works. And they mostly did the surgery anyway, so that was also like made us feel a lot better, because that was like a very common thing to do versus the medicine.
So then overnight we're talking about, we decide, yes, we're going to do the surgery. Sure. And we're in the NICU.
Go to sleep, and we're like, all right, it's going to happen. Like, probably we're going to get it scheduled and be very soon, but we didn't know exactly when yet.
Yep.
And then we wake up in the morning.
And then we're holding hands. Right? And then we're holding hands, walking. Well,
we had just left we weren't through that. Like, we were the room, the washing our hands, and then the doorway to the NICU. And I swear we were like here from washing our hands.
And then we Melinda down that long hall.
Yeah, Melinda full speed. I remember even seeing her in the turn of her run still. Like, and she is full stride. She sees us and she waves us and she's like, hurry, hurry. And we're like, shit, this isn't good. We both freaking ran. I don't even remember running, but I just remember there and there. But I know we ran. And that room was insane. I thought my labor and delivery room and like having him was insane, but that room was like pulling babies out of there, clearing it up. We talked to Dr. Gandhi, I think, that day, and Melinda, of course, and them saying, remember what we were worried about, that because of a heart issue, the intestines were dying off. So then that created the perforation in his intestines, and he looks sick. His stomach is like popping out.
And it's discolored.
Yeah.
Which was all of the issues that we saw for the necrotizing enterocolitis.
Yeah. So we had already knew what this was like, and that was like the worst 1 week anniversary. The honeymoon was over then.
Yeah, so he was literally 7 days old.
Yeah.
And then we thought that we were going to do this heart surgery, but then now we get there and it's an emergency situation, and you got respiratory therapists, you got the doctors, you got the nurses, and they're like, we got to stabilize him before we can have surgery, and everybody's freaking out.
Clearing out 5 other babies from that room.
Right, and we're just holding each other's hand, like looking, going like, what's happening
and then them bringing the paper over to sign for surgery, and getting we've like what could happen, and then having to
sign and say
yeah. That paper and that signature really was like probably one of the, besides the surgery, like as dreadful as the surgery was that paper. And the like, let me explain to you. And I definitely got to the point where I was like, I don't want to hear it. Let me sign it and thank you.
Helpless. You're helpless.
Yeah, because you must like the ambulance drive, like there's this one's bad and that one's bad, so we better pick the right one. And how many times did we just get handed the cards that were not the good? Well, we didn't think they were the good cards. But I would still explain it as we got to go to the NICU.
Yeah, an experience that not many
I'm so
people
thankful for.
are able to. Again, talk about blessing and a curse, or it would be cursed and then a blessing. That's how that whole thing would work.
Wish that on my worst enemy, but I'm also so appreciative and thankful because that year was like we grew like ourselves so much, and I grew in like in a few ways, like the being grateful for things that I would never imagine to think about, to appreciate and be grateful for. Which I think is like that is life-changing.
Yeah. The gift of life. Well,
so that first surgery was pretty nerve-wracking because they did it bedside in a technically not real sterile area.
But it needed to happen now.
Yeah, so
because
that was
his belly was like this, and it was like all discolored. It wasn't like it was distended, and it was like it was hard
solid
to touch.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But then it was okay, so that they had a successful surgery.
Yeah, and they brought up his intestines, and they ended up only. I don't remember how much they took.
So when you say brought up, what do you mean?
When they brought his intestines to
poked out his belly.
Yeah.
So they basically cut it, right, and
they cut off the dead. They went through it. They had to go through it and find what was dead, and it was like the upper part of where the stomach goes into the intestines, and I want to say that it wasn't like 3 inches into the intestines. Like there's like nothing to absorb like intestinally of the nutrients, like how your body absorbs through your intestines.
Mm-hmm. And
like that was a pain.
Well, and then they put him on a morphine drip, right?
Well, after he comes out, and it was good, yeah, and then he's morphine and fentanyl.
Yeah. Or it was fentanyl. So fentanyl is like
that was
morphine.
the first thing.
Yeah. So yeah, it
was Versed also was in there somewhere. I don't know if it was this one, but remember after he had the heart surgery when they added something else in.
Yeah. So that was vecuronium.
But
that's
vecuronium.
So then what?
The vecuronium.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what? He was on the morphine drip, And then it was probably 2 hours after the surgery, you could see him start to move again, where he was like, it was
the
movement.
kicking, the like moving of his feet, or
Yeah, and you're looking at it like, okay,
he's
thank
looking
you, God.
good. Yeah, he's in there.
Well, now we're like, oh, well, we had this surgery, but
We still need the heart.
we didn't fix the heart, which is basically caused this.
Yeah, so only more should come from waiting. But we had to wait. That was terrible too, because then he had to get stable from that surgery, and it was 3 days later. And they did the heart surgery.
And then, so then you have the heart surgery, and I'm like, you know, my brain's going all different kind of directions, because like he was on this fentanyl drip for 2 days or 3 days, and then he goes directly into the heart surgery. And then I'm thinking, like, what if he overdoses? And then what ends up happening is they perform the surgery. Dr. Lau, again, another miracle person that we are so thankful for.
Oh, and Shaw did the first.
Dr. Shaw.
The first intestinal surgery. He did that, and then we saw him again, like, years later. For
his retirement party or something.
No. When Sage had that thing on his knee, and the strawberries.
Oh, got it.
When he went to LA. The blockage.
Sage.
When he had the blockage.
Yeah. Okay, so then what ends up happening is Sage isn't moving.
After
and
the
it's hours
heart
later,
surgery.
after the heart surgery, and he's just like a lump on a log, not moving, not doing anything.
Like,
and
lifeless. And you ask the nurse.
Yeah, and I'm getting...
What did he have? What was he given? Oh, just the same.
Versed and fentanyl. I'm like,
Yeah.
That's all?
Yeah, because he wasn't like that.
And then it was like...
we were worried.
more hours.
It was not right.
And then more hours, and then still not moving, and then it's getting to the evening time, and he's still not moving at all, and then we had to leave, because I was like...
We probably had to go eat something, you know.
Yeah, and then to have some time away, because it was stressful.
Yeah.
And then we came back, and he still wasn't moving. And then I'm thinking to myself, and then I'm trying to research overdose of micro-premies. Well, there ain't a lot of case studies about that out there.
Yeah.
So there wasn't anything I could find. But I'm thinking to myself, common sense, you have that much opiate going into a little thing that's that big for that amount of time, like, there's probably not good things that are going to come from that. So, but then I asked the nurse to show me the chart, because I want to see for my own self what medicine he received. And then I saw vecuronium, and then I'm like, vecuronium, and I looked it up, and I found out that's a paralytic.
And he was getting it, or he had it. Was he still getting it? I think they had paralyzed him.
Yeah.
That was like to stay that way so he wouldn't be moving.
Right.
But we didn't know that. And we were sure that this wasn't normal, but he had only had the same medicine that he had. We were not happy.
Right. Yeah, that was one of those situations where the nurse didn't tell us what she should have, like, or she should have looked, you know. And so I'm like, all right, you know what? We can't have this nurse anymore, because if she's not gonna either be upfront or thorough or tell me, like, because if they would have said, okay, vecuronium, it's a paralytic, then I'd say, oh, that's why he stinks. Okay, I understand. Right. But when you're not,
and especially because that's like 100% your coping is knowing and understanding and grasping, and that like gave you
anxiety like a mofo. Like, well, anxiety, worried.
Because it wasn't right, and it was like, why is that's not how he should be. And that was a huge thing, I think, in our benefit, and them doing. Now, I don't think it was yet, but I think I met with Sarah. I don't remember when I met with Sarah, but when I remember going in the room and I think we, like, because some people couldn't have stage. And I remember meeting with Sarah and explaining, and then I think that's when they started the trial of primary care. They're like, these people would be perfect because they were really picky. But
So when you said not everybody could have Sage, that meant not every nurse could take care of Sage because he was a high risk baby because he kept desatting and
he was an extra. He was very extra as a baby. He wasn't somebody that was like normally in the NICU. Oh, you hear more like feeder grower, and that is the babies that just need to get to the normal. Then it was like a 5 pound mark, and be able to eat, hold their blood, their what is it called, their body temperature, and eat and grow and see that they're growing correctly, which was like what do you call it, the stages of the hospitals where like that one was a stage or the grade 4,
stage 3, like a level 3
there,
yeah, NICU,
which means they take care of the sick kids, not just like small babies that just need to eat and grow and make sure they're not forgetting to breathe. But Sage, who is desatting, needs oxygen, has an infection, has the thriving issues that he had.
So, and the thing about desatting is that the oxygen, so you normally breathe, so we are breathing at like 100% oxygen. The babies, when they're not getting, it's like 90% or 80%, or it drops to 60%.
I think that as they're younger, they need to stay at a lower, like 80.
I don't think so. No, they need to be at 100%. That's the ideal.
I remember like at like each baby was like so what are we at then?
100.
We're at 100?
Yeah.
They're lower. They are lower. I know I remember seeing where all, like, I have pictures of that thing.
Well, he was lower. I mean, you can be, there's ranges, like, but think about it. You want as pure oxygen as you can get. Like, you want the oxygen because
obviously like 60s but I remember like 80 was okay, but we didn't have it.
But because he was dropping low, so basically what happens is your body is, if you're not getting the proper oxygen, that's why when they do our test, right, and they check our saturation levels of, it's how saturated of
oxygen is in your blood.
In the blood, right?
Yeah.
And so and then that's when they check the hematocrit and the hemoglobin and stuff. And if those numbers are low, that's not good. You want it to be 100%. So you can live with it without it being 100%, but you want it. That's
I'm gonna text Melinda right now and
but well, anyway, so regardless of that whole thing,
but I'll find out.
It causes a lot of problems if you desat and you have lack of oxygen in your blood. It causes your organs to seize up, and if your organs seize up, you cease to exist, right? So when he would desat and it would drop to like 60 or it would drop to that, you would freak out and they would have to go into a certain protocol to revive him or to make sure that he's okay.
And there was a couple times where like I would have to like, hey, we need help, he's not, and I would say that was probably like about a month or 3 weeks in when I finally started trying to learn to.
So then, okay, so now we just had his surgery, the vecuronium, the second surgery. Now the vecuronium, I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand. And then that night at like 9 or 10 o'clock is he started moving a little bit, and I'm like, okay, thank you, Jesus. Right?
I think it was probably like 9 o'clock. I think I remember, but time literally just slipped away in there. because they have no windows. And it's just like the lights are on. And it could be 3 a.m. right now. And I don't know.
Yeah. Well, then, as they're checking the hematocrit, the hematocrit
was dropping.
drops, and then, which means the blood oxygen was dropping, which means that now at the same time they're doing intracranial x-rays, right? Because he had a grade 1 brain bleed.
Yeah, it started off.
Yeah, it started off as a grade 1, and then what ends up happening is they check the hematocrit drops, and then they end up doing another intracranial intracranial x-ray, find that there's hemorrhaging, which is bleeding.
And I think they were giving him blood yet or no?
I think they were.
I feel like it was like an endless thing, because from the beginning you were trying to give your blood. Right. And I was wanting to give my blood, but I couldn't give my blood.
Right. And then so what was happening is at the same time now it turned into a grade 2. So then
worse.
Common sense is like, hey, there's a blood.
He's bleeding in his brain.
Yeah, and the blood there's some kind of thing that's going here, and he's lacking the oxygen. So the blood's going up there, and now.
And this is like week 2.5, right?
Yeah. And now we start having to look at, what does this mean as a grade 2 brain bleed? What does a brain bleed do? What side effects, what causes, right? Because he's still only 24 weeks old. A 24 weeker. I guess, no, he's not 24 weeks old.
Weeks then, yeah.
He was but he's like he's like 2 weeks old, right?
Yeah.
But still it would have been a 26 weeker.
Yeah.
Right? And so
yeah, and his eyes had only opened. No, they weren't even open yet.
No. Mm-mm.
Right. So still.
So
then we're worried. He has his brain. He's got like a major brain bleed, and
right.
He's gonna have
mental retardation,
cerebral palsy,
or cerebral palsy,
and that was so freaking scary.
And we had to sit with it. And then what ends up happening is, to add insult to injury,
that's when the blood infection happened.
Well, so I remember him starting to do.
Oh, right, twitches.
The twitches.
Yeah.
So now, brain bleed, seeing all of the issues about, cerebral palsy or mental retardation, whatever's going to happen. And then he starts twitching. And it's like, and that for me was like a very another
he's having brain problems is literally
it's already started.
Thinking. Yeah, we could see it.
And what do you do in that case? You can't do anything. You just gotta sit there.
And then I remember that's probably very near to when I was I remember crying in the little room that we had in the NICU, or the little parent room in the NICU. That was tough. I remember it was the room on the left, not the one on the right.
You want the best for your babies. You want them to be healthy. You want them to be happy. You want them to have everything that they need that is like anyone else's kids, right? And so when you have to wrestle with the thought that your kid there's a good chance your kid's going to have a lot of things that hold them back or that stop them from being normal, that's a hard pill to swallow. That is a hard pill, and you don't really swallow well.
No.
But then adding to that whole stress is that they didn't have they needed to do another test, MRI, right? And then they couldn't get the equipment or something, so that we had to wait till Monday for them to do that MRI to find out exactly what it was or something. And in the meantime, he's twitching, and then thank God, again later, and what ended up happening was, where I was saying overdose because of the fentanyl, those twitches
Were his withdrawals.
was his withdrawals coming off the fentanyl because he had been on it for so long,
Right.
and then they had weaned him off of it, and then he was, twitching as a withdrawal, and so that was such
a relief.
A relief for me. I was like, thank you, God.
Yeah, as terrible.
Thank you, God, for withdrawal twitches from fentanyl. Like what?
Right.
How would you ever thank God for that?
But
that's how.
Yeah.
Because it could have been way worse.
Yeah.
So,
and then the blood infection was like right then.
So that was the next thing?
Yeah. He was 3 weeks at the blood infection. For sure. And that's when I think I remember when we were cleaning out the ostomy bag, because what the way that we would clean out the ostomy bag was like with a syringe.
So the ostomy bag is when they did the one surgery. Basically, they did a take up for this intestines, so you still produce bile or whatever, and then they put a bag on it. So
yeah. And the way we would drain it was put the syringe on it, and then they would measure how much, because they would give him milk through his nose, the G tube, and so we would measure how much went in, and then we would measure how much came out, and in that mix, his I don't know if it was his, I think it was his IV actually, that got dirty from the poop. And I remember seeing it, but also feeling like I don't know if I just, like, she cleaned it, or it was fine. Like, I thought that wasn't gonna be. And then I think that's like literally when he got sick, like right then. That was another.
So the ostomy,
That's when he was sepsis.
So it's right. So it's possible when whoever was cleaning the bag, that there was poop on it, and then that poop got
land on the port. It landed on the port.
Oh, got it.
But yeah, that's something that I should have said something, and I will always vividly remember it landing on it, because he was moving his hands and cleaning the thing, and I think like he had flicked something. It was something like in that direction where it wasn't just like a, oops, I spilled it, I didn't clean it. It was like he did something and it like brushed whatever. Definitely something I should have said something about.
And then what do you remember from the blood infection? Like what was happening with him?
He was super sick looking. That's when he lost a lot of weight. He was gray. He looked like death.
So I remember that the 2-pound mark was like a milestone, and that we wanted to get him to 2 pounds. But then that's when he got the blood infection, and that's when he was dropping weight. Mm-hmm. And then it's like you have a real risk of him not making it. And so you're just hoping and praying that everything works out.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was like, sepsis is like death. It's not, and then it's for someone who's already sick and already fragile and already so small. Like, grown adults die from sepsis. So this little itty bitty thing, yeah, that was extra hard.
And then I remember, so 9 months before Sage was born, I lost my little brother in a motorcycle accident. And that's why his middle name is Lee, because of Tori Lee Carlisle, so Sage Lee. And I remember that he hit that 2-pound mark on my brother's birthday.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, because we were like waiting for that and then it happened that day.
Which was June 2nd, and Sage was born May 8th. So 3 weeks later, basically. That's crazy. And then he kept on gaining weight, like accelerated pace gaining weight.
Yeah. Yeah. And you had to go out of town. I don't remember why you went out of town.
Mm.
Like, a job. And, do you remember?
It was a blur.
Mm-hmm. I want to say that you were possibly gone for like a week or like 5 days, something like that. And remember, Preston's 5, Lindsay's 14, and still doing that juggle between work, kids, and Sage.
Yep.
So he gained a lot of weight fast. And I mean, because I guess a lot of weight is, because in the NICU, the weight gain is by like ounces and
Right.
grams, so.
Right. Every day they weigh him, and then there's a whiteboard that has his new stats, how long, how heavy, how, if he's got any
His
issues
goals
at the
for
day.
the day, his what makes him upset, his goals, his how much his feed is or wasn't,
Who his nurse is.
NPO.
Right? Okay, so then what ends up happening is now introduce hypothyroidism. Right? So he's gaining now. Did that come before the jaundice?
I think it came right before it did. I mean, jaundice was, I think, always kind of like, because he did the Billy Light,
Right,
which
the Billy
is
Rubin.
different than the jaundice that he had
Right, he got really bad jaundice.
because of the medicine. And that's when they were working on getting Omegaven, which wasn't approved by
Right.
the FDA.
So hypothyroidism. So was that the next step? Is in the dominant? Was that the next
he
domino?
gained a lot of weight because I remember they had moved him to the other unit. So the one he originally started, then they moved him across the way.
So, but we were
That's
all
where he gained a lot of.
happy because he was gaining weight, and then it's like, whoa, wait, hold on. The doctor's
much.
like, no, that's not good.
Yeah.
We're like,
And that's when my naive, like, oh cool, when he's gonna be 5 pounds and then he can come home near his due date.
because every day you're wanting to take him home, but obviously in his situation, you couldn't because he's hooked up to a bunch of wires and cables.
And that was something I think that I was very blinded to also, of not realizing how sick he was in the moment. Like, we knew there was problems, but now looking back, it's like, dang, he looks sick. And I don't think I saw it the same then. Like,
Well, and then what I remember from that is then his hair was falling out.
mm-hmm.
He just grew, like he gained a bunch of weight, and then what was happening is, and then he was balding, and then his body wasn't repairing itself.
And then that's when like the bleeding from his foot was just like he's still bleeding. More than when he was younger, actually. Because like normally the blood would like, what is it when
coagulate.
Yeah, so it was like attempting to like scab, I guess, and then it was just not. I remember being over in that corner when like Preston got to go see him. I think that was for the first time that Preston got to see him on the other side. I have a picture of that when he was like looking in and he has his little hat on and he's like standing on the little step stool. And
then Lindsay was Lindsay there too?
because you remember she would go to Florida to go see her mom.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember her going to go see him, but she was about to go to Florida because this was like near summer break. And she, I think, was just like, I think that you maybe brought her to the NICU. Like, maybe we went on the way to the airport. And then we went and dropped Lindsay off. Like, that was going to be her last time getting to see him before, like, her month or two that she was going to be in Florida.
Mm.
It all blends in.
It does. It all blends in. Because
Yeah.
I'm also thinking about, all right, well, when did the 3 weeks of no eating?
NPO, yeah.
Yeah. When did
Nothing-
that happen? Was that after the jaundice or before the jaundice? Or before the hypothyroidism or after the hypothyroidism?
I feel like he had a lot of those times where he couldn't, because he never had a bottle, you know, because
Right.
when he was able to get some milk, like the 5 mLs that he would get over the however long, hour, 2 hours it was.
Yeah.
Which is
5
like a spoon.
ml. So
This
that's
is a spoon.
so tiny.
She never really like truly got milk. In my definition, like he did, like I remember once giving him like there was like the nipple of the bottle and we put a little bit in there and he did drink it, so it was cool to see that he like it was probably when he's like 32 weeks. That just meant his brain was
Working.
there to do that. That was pretty great to see. Because he had not ever gotten to do that. His eating was just through the tube to his stomach.
And then do you remember the second emergency surgery for his intestines? Do you remember when that happened?
The third surgery was the planned surgery. And it was like, that's when he was not recovering, you know, like he was gaining the weight. They were waiting for him to be a certain weight. It was July 17th, Jackie's birthday. That's why it always like sticks. Isn't Fred's like the next day?
Fred's is July 16th. The day prior.
So right there. So that one was that was a planned one. And I think it was because he was hitting that weight that he needed to hit. And then he had gotten there. But I think there was hindsight. I think there was like the miscommunication of like, we think like doctors like Abbasi probably would have been like, he's not ready for surgery, health wise. But Dr. Lau was probably like, he hit that
threshold,
that pound, and let's try to get him back together. And then when they reconnected it, the 17th.
That was the plan to reconnect it. Mm-hmm. So that was the third surgery.
That was the third one. So they planned that one. They reconnected it, and that's like near when he was gaining all that weight. So they reconnected it, and then they brought him back in. His bed was in a new spot from when they took him, and when he came back, he looked sick, like, and coming back from that surgery, because at that point I think he only had like the nasal cannula. It was not like anything too strong of a, like, it was still probably like a high flow, but it wasn't like,
it wasn't the CPAP where it was like constant pressure.
But that is no, I think it was a CPAP when he came out of that, and no, I think it was CPAP then. But because there is a picture that I have of him, and you just see him, and you could see like his sickness coming through, and I feel like the like yellowness was starting near then. He looked like he was sick after surgery, and then his white blood cell was up, and we weren't loving like that. I remember holding him, and I think my mom was with me at that point, like at that visit, and we were driving. That's when we were driving back, and that was like probably 2 days. That was 2 or 3 days after the takedown, so the 20th. Was it 3 days? No, I think it was 3 or 5. After that takedown, then they were like his white blood cells up. we're not comfortable with
Which
this.
means infection.
Yeah. So then Dr. Lau was like, he wasn't feeling confident about that. So they wanted to go in there and do an exploratory. That was the exploratory.
That was the fourth?
That was the fourth surgery, was the exploratory. After the exploratory, or during the exploratory, they took everything out. And then they saw that
So they took his intestines out, basically, and explored to see if there was
any other holes, because that had to be why he was having that. He was having the white blood cell because
there's got to be an infection, so it's...
Yeah, so something's got to be leaking. And it perforated at the stitch. Like, it broke. So what they think that there was they thought there was a kink farther down the line that was, like, blocking the track. So, then he just brought it back up, which I was so, like, the 2 steps forward and 10 steps back. But after that,
Again, when you mean brought it back up,
his intestines,
they pull it out of the stomach.
Yeah.
And
So then that's when he had the double barrel that time.
The double barrel ileostomy.
Yeah. So then, before it was just the one coming out, the one stoma. And then, which putting a bag on that was a little easier than putting the bag over that, because we would put the duoderm, the adhesive that stuck the bag to him, and the tape that did the barrier to protect his skin, which his skin always looked amazing.
Supple, soft, beautiful.
Yeah, which I got to make sure it stayed that way.
Well, I thought that was pretty amazing that you would actually change the ileostomy.
And that me and Melinda had that little pattern for the stomas where we drew it out, and we were cut it a little bit here, and then this was we had it all mapped out on
how it was
the funky. And then as he got older too, I didn't think about this because this intestines keep growing. So then they started as a small little intestines poking out of his belly to the intestines were growing out of his stomach, which I wasn't
Yeah, you
at the beginning I wasn't thinking oh, these are gonna grow out. And one of them was extra slimy and extra sticking out. So as soon as that duoderm got wet, by touching that, we would have to get the duoderm around. If it just got the slightest bit wet, that one was done.
Right, and then you'd have to
redo
it, the whole thing.
Cut it, get it to where it would just slide right on, and that was always but I feel that was my ability to be mom, pretty much, because there's not a lot of, because they're all teaching me how to be mom, and that was a big part of because obviously that was also my firstborn, so I didn't really have any true firstborn baby experiences before. I don't know if that was quite the firstborn baby experience.
Yeah. Well, you've had a bunch of crazy baby experiences.
Yeah.
Say just the beginning. Yeah, we. So then.
That's when the blood. The blood infection, or no, not blood infection.
The aspiration pneumonia.
No, that wasn't then. No, so they took it back. They brought it back up, and we're like, all right, we gotta start over. We gotta give his intestines time to heal. But really, it was also his health was just not right. It's probably still getting better from his blood infection. Probably that. I feel that was pretty close to the blood infection. For his body to it got pretty hit by the blood infection. Hit his body, where his recovery, I think, was probably affected by
right.
the internal illness that was also like not seen. Then it was he in between all that he was also getting the checks for his eyes.
I think that was the main reason when he started taking the Omega Van, right? Because he wasn't healing, and then and then they tried to they tried to take out the intubated.
He was in the next pod, and he started Omega Van. Because I remember Dr. Gandhi and Melinda were trying to figure out the switching off and on. So I think that it was when he was on the lipids. The lipids were going to give rickets. I think. I could ask. But I think because he didn't get Omega Van because he didn't get it right away. And I think that's probably why we had to get the Omega Van, because of what was happening with his weight gain. We need to change it every, I think it was like 18 hours. 12, was it 12 or 18?
I don't remember.
But switching off, and then that got the hypothyroidism under control because he was on the lipids. Oh, and then he was also on what makes him pee?
Oh yeah,
because that was all water weight. The weight he was gaining was his was that his kidneys were, or his liver was having a problem?
Kidney.
No, I'm trying
at which
to think
point?
of the word. I'm trying to think of the word for that medicine because I think your mom takes it too.
Lasix.
Yeah. Lasix, and that was the weight he was gaining, was all water weight. I feel like he was in the next pod when he had the laser eye surgery.
Okay, back to the eye exams. So the eye exams where they would put that metal clip or the little like handle
they were like,
thing.
you don't want to be here to watch the
eye exam.
And I was like, yes, I do. I want to see what they're doing. And they're like, it's pretty traumatic, and you don't, like, that's not something that anybody wants to see. And we wanted to see it. We wanted to be there. And she had her same step stool Preston would get on to, like, look into the isolate. And she had these, do you remember them?
They're like prongs or something like
that.
But
for herself. To see
oh, yeah, the little
to examine his eyes. And I remember seeing, like, it was his first eye exam.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, he needs the surgery right now. And it was like, I think they did it the same day, right?
Yeah, they had to do it like immediately. But on the eye exam, basically, it's like a prong that holds your eye open like this.
It would be similar to like a pap smear for an eyeball.
But men don't know really what that is, so women will get you just fine.
Perfect. Spell that out. Yeah, that was like forks to hold the eyelids open.
Then they put a solution in, right, to dilate the eyes.
Uh-huh. And the rooms were all dark, so she could look.
And again, the reason that they're checking the eyeballs is because he's been on the continuous pressure oxygen for so long that the free radicals have gone in, and so they were very looking at all, every day, making sure that. Well, was there something that triggered that eye exam?
30 weeks, I think.
Oh, at 30 weeks.
I think it's or 20. There's like a
date.
There's an age to check them. Yeah.
Got it. And it just so happened to be lucky that they caught it.
Yeah, and she comes like once a week, I want to say.
Because what she said is it can go literally make a kid blind within 72 hours.
Yeah. And she comes like once a week. So like that 72-hour mark is like you hit or miss. And
so what happens as the kid is growing and they're still not completely developed? Well, their eyes are starting to develop, and what happens is your blood vessels, as you develop, grow from back here around your eye and attach to your retina like a elevator. It has a bunch of cables, so all of these vessels are going in, and they're supposed to capture onto the retina so it holds the the retina in place. But what was happening is these vessels were getting like halfway there, and then they'd start growing into the eyeball,
and
then,
like detach from, so it would like pull it inwards.
right, and then the retina would become detached, and then obviously he'd be blind. So what they would do, and it was called pan. I just saw the darn word, photocoagulation, panoptical photocoagulation.
ROP.
So that's what he got. That's what he had. Retinopathy of prematurity, stage 3+ disease. That's what he got. But the surgery was panretinal photocoagulation, laser panretinal photocoagulation. So they go in with a laser and they burn.
Yeah.
And it was out of luck that she just happened to do the eye exam at that time where she could actually see the developing of what was happening.
Yeah, and also that it got to where it grew to, because I feel like his peripheral is pretty decent. Like he can, because they were like so then our after surgery, is that when he got the aspiration pneumonia?
I don't remember at what point it was.
One of the two is either after the eye surgery, which I kind of believe it was then, because he was breathing all on his own. Candace's birthday, August 2nd. I was so like, yes.
That was the first day he breathed on his own?
100%. And then,
wow.
And then, I'm pretty sure the same exact day, that's when he had the eye exam.
So that's 3 months after he was born, basically. That's when he was able to breathe for the first time. Natural.
Support free.
100% natural.
Yeah, there's no support with it. And I was so freaking happy. Maybe it was Preston's birthday that he had the laser eye surgery then. Because it was like, he's breathing on his own and it's so cool. And then...
So August 2nd is Candace's, August 7th is Preston. So 5 days, a week later.
Yeah, less than... And it was like, yay, so exciting. And I get to see his face, and I like had gotten to put clothes on him. That was like the first time I got to put any baby clothes on him. And because then the cords were a lot less, and it was like a lot less of a...
He still had the IVs. And
yeah. It wasn't that easy. I had to get clothes where the IVs could, like the buttons, like he had a little pajama onesie, and the cord could come out of his belly area. But then that was terrible, because then it was too close to this region. So then we would make sure to like make it by his feet, so that at least the cords would like just come down his leg and out. But I believe his eye surgery was near Preston's, and then he was like on that full support, and that was like
walking him back.
So like, dang, we just got there. And then he had that aspiration, and that like damages your lungs. Because what had happened was to get the aspiration pneumonia, they were trying to extubate. And then come to find out, when they had taken him in for the surgery, and they put the tube in for that previous surgery, the OR scraped his throat. They didn't have a success intubating him for surgery.
And that was from the eye surgery
I believe it was from the eye surgery.
Got it.
So the OR, because every other time they had intubated in the NICU. There, he'd gone, and now I'm not sure if it was for the eye surgery or the other surgery. Because
regardless.
I think that, because then he was also on that high pressure, and it was when he had that, the other surgery for his intestines. Because he had to like take him when they took him back up. But I remember in between that there was like that high flow, like in his, and he had the beanie too.
Mm-hmm.
That was doing that high flow, and the air was getting in his stomach.
Oh yeah.
Remember, and it was like
Oh,
loose
yeah.
air, and that's how they were That's how they found. That's how they found that he perforated
Because they had to do the X-rays whenever
for
he's
the
on.
placement of the tube, and then in that check they had seen loose air in his belly, and they were like,
Wait, that ain't right.
the air is
How
supposed
could
to
there
be
be
over here.
air in your belly?
The air, yeah, and they were just trying, and I think that had just gotten enough of the belly for them to say, wait, like, this is what we're checking, but this is not right.
So again, luck.
And that's when they'd scraped his, and like, although that was terrible, they scraped it, and then when Dr. Abbasi called me and she was like, sorry, we had to re-intubate.
Right. Okay. So here's basically they scraped it, and because they scraped it, they had to keep him intubated.
Because his throat was swollen shut.
While you're intubated, you have to have X-rays as protocol.
Yes.
And because you were intubated, if they didn't scratch his throat,
yes,
he wouldn't have been intubated, which means he wouldn't have had the X-ray for them to see the air in the belly. Now I remember that.
Yeah, as terrible as that was, because we were like, he's freaking, his support is like so much better, and he didn't need the stronger one, but coming out, he came out and he was intubated, and they were checking that location to make sure it was where it needed to be for the lungs, and then it was because they want to make sure it wasn't in the stomach, is I think what the main thing is like lungs, not stomach. So because that was so, like, that was terrible, but then it saved him from being sepsis.
Right.
A second time.
So, and then is the aspiration pneumonia what happened after that?
When they had pulled up the
intestines again, right?
No, they were pulling the breathing support, because they were like, oh, he can breathe.
So as soon as they pulled it out,
we weren't there for that, and thank God.
His throat closed.
It was swollen shut, so putting it back in was like, I'm sure Dr. Abbasi, because I think she re-intubated him, but it was like,
I remember seeing Gupta and Abbasi arguing about that, because Abbasi, one of them was saying you got to leave it in, and the other one saying you got to take it out, and because what was happening is the aspiration pneumonia was getting into the tube, so then he was choking on the excess, so he wasn't breathing correctly even with it in, but then if they pulled it out, his throat would close. And
you could see the infection. Remember when they would, like, we would have to vacuum out clear the line, because his oxygen was getting, the line was getting filled with, his oxygen was getting filled with, what do you call it? His oxygen line was getting filled with, like, gunk.
Gunk, right.
Yeah.
And that's why he couldn't breathe, and he was choking on it.
Yeah.
And I remember that was one of the scariest moments, because it was like, damned if you do, and damned if you don't. This is his
life right there. Yeah, that is what is keeping him alive. That was.
And then again, back to prayer. Please, God, help.
Yeah.
Please, God. And they made the decision, we got to pull it. We got to pull it, because the aspiration pneumonia is getting stuck in the aspiration anyway, is getting stuck in the oxygen, so he couldn't breathe. So they had to pull it out. But then it was so nerve-wracking, because his throat was swollen before and closed. But thank God they pulled it out, and he continued to breathe. Mm-hmm. So that was like a minor miracle. That was definitely a minor miracle of the whole timing of that whole situation. So after the aspiration pneumonia, they pulled out the tube, and lo and behold, he's breathing, and everything is okay.
That was so nerve-wracking, though. I was like, is he still breathing? Like, I called so many times that when we had to leave, is he still breathing? And like, it's probably like through the night, too. That was a nerve-wracking few days. And then, like, just kidding. Okay, so then we got past that. He got past that.
No, we too, because then, and at the same time, life doesn't stop. So we have still work. There's still kids that has to go to school. There's still bills that have to be paid. There's still all of these extra things that are happening that don't stop because we're having this emergency. So the logistics of going to the hospital and coming back and
Picking up from school, going back the same night after we got everybody home.
I mean, that was,
And then stay until like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Shoot. Melinda, they would always have to kick us out of there.
yeah.
Well, me, for sure.
Well, and the cool thing is what they had is the Ronald McDonald House. So for people coming out of town, like far, we could always stay there if we wanted to. We never actually stayed there because then we decided, you know, if we drive home, it's a little bit longer, but at least we're going to be home.
I had gotten sick, I think, for like, oh, no. 2 things that I just remembered. After his laser eye surgery, I think they had like the post-surgery appointment where, not the lady that did the surgery, but the guy that was like the following.
Mm-hmm.
And then he comes and says, I think that Sage was I think at that point he was in that solitary room.
Oh, because was that when he had the aspiration pneumonia? Is that why they put him there? Or why did they put him in the solitary?
Well,
He got some bacteria infection, I thought.
It's...
You don't remember? I don't
No,
remember.
I remember. He went outside.
Right. You
He
took
was
him outside.
215 days old. And this is another one for me. Because he's not supposed to go outside. But we convinced a newbie to allow us to go outside. And we were like, yeah, can we borrow the wagon? Because first we had a wagon just to like potentially bring him around just the NICU with the sticks and like all the
Oh, right.
medicines and everything still supporting him, but he could breathe on his own. And we got the wagon, and we're like, we're going outside, and like all amazed that like we're gonna go outside, and I remember like, wait, I think that I want you to be there, and you were like, no, if you can go, let's go, and then we went outside and like walking down that hallway, going down the elevator, walking. I think we waited also till nobody was gonna be in the elevator with us. Went down the elevator. Go down the hall to go outside, and the doors open, and I'm in front like with my phone to like record. And when the wind hit his face, he was like a fish out of the water with his tongue, and he was like making these weird faces because he, like, I remember his tongue doing something funky too, and he was like getting wind blown in his face, which is like.
Wow.
He hadn't felt wind or fresh air or seen the sunlight, and that was like such a huge moment of what he wasn't like, hadn't gotten to experience it at that point. He was like, I want to say this particular was like, what's 215 days? He's like 6 months old.
Yeah.
5 months, maybe 5 months.
Yeah.
But a
divided by
5-month old
4.
that had never had fresh air or had gone outside or seen the sun, like that was like such a, like, I can vividly see the wind hitting him and him like, and that was like one of those moments of the most appreciation and thankfulness that, like, the things that we do every freaking day, and we get to go outside and we get to have the weather. And he'd only had experience. He had never seen the sun in 5 or 6 months. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
What a amazing, like, that was such an amazing experience. Then we did it one more time, and then he got sick. We got to go out one more time, and just to sit outside and watch him. That was like such a cool experience.
Isn't that interesting how that little thing is so powerful when you think about it? Because of the fact that we take for granted so much stuff, and that little thing, and then you see how he reacts. I would have loved to be there, but I would have rather him experience that.
Yeah, because we weren't allowed to do that.
Yeah. Well,
But it was
sometimes you gotta
such
bend the rules a little bit, you know?
Such a huge moment, and it was like something that I felt like he needed a breath of fresh air,
Mm-hmm.
and he got that. It was worth it all. Then he got quarantined, and I feel like that. Then he got such a good one-on-one care, and he was getting older and more of a baby that needs, like, cause like obviously when a baby's a newborn and they just sleep, but then he's getting to like 5-month-old
Where he's awake.
and he's like ready to play and be active and needs like
Movement.
human interaction and and the movement and the like, not just laying there in his bed doing nothing. And that would have been, not being able to get that extra attention that he did get. Well, I also was there all the time too. I think that was like getting to be there, because a lot of there's a lot of babies and parents. Some, like that one that the mom only came to pick him up 3 months later.
Can you imagine? I mean, understand parents have to work, some, you know, that kind of stuff.
That one, she didn't know she was.
Separated.
That one, she didn't know she was pregnant.
And
then she had a baby.
Had a baby. And then she's like, oh,
And he
crap.
was 23 weeks.
Wow.
23. So he was
Yeah.
younger than Sage,
which is...
but didn't have problems. And that baby stayed with Sage because Sage was the problem and that one was not.
Sage had to
Thank
make
God
sure
he
he kept
didn't, but
everybody on their toes.
Yeah. Yeah. They sure did. Everybody learned a lot that year.
Yep. No doubt about that.
So after he he had that solitary, or whatever it's called, quarantine area. Then he got moved. There's a time in between I'm missing. So he was moved closer to the front, and I think that's when we got him out.
Outside?
Yeah. That pod and that area was. That's when they did the spinal taps. Before.
5 spinal taps. Well, now, maybe not at that point, not at that one juncture, but he had 5 spinal taps, but only 2 of them were successful. That's what I have in mind, like, when I'm looking back.
Yeah. Why were they doing that?
I don't remember.
I'm not sure. I don't remember why they were doing that. I think it was to see if... I think I know. I think it was to see if, you know when you need to do, a shunt?
Mm-hmm.
I think there was something with a shunt. To make sure about fluids draining or something like that correctly.
Yeah, I don't remember that either. We'll have to look.
And then, okay, so after the spinal taps, in between all of that, he's getting new PICC lines because the PICC lines needed to be changed like once a month. I think it was once a month or every 6 weeks. After each, I mean, a lot of times though, they just needed to be changed. The one time.
The last time? Or which
The
time?
last time.
Yeah.
The last time the bandages needed to be changed on the one that was by his ear.
Well, they went there because they couldn't get it anywhere else, right? Because they were trying to do PICC lines, but they couldn't. That was
the one that they could do. That was like right above the ear.
So then they had to go to his head.
Yeah, so you could see it like right by his ear, and that one would flop, like the ports would just flop in all different directions, and it was hard to like handle him. But it was like we have to like stay away from that and not hold it where it was like going to be pulling and then when the bandages were being changed, when Mrs. Lim went on break, and she was like, don't touch him until I come back, and that's not what happened. Miss Lim was so pissed. She was like, I told her not to touch him until I got back from my break, and she did it anyway, and with her accent, and it was like, looking back, it was so funny to hear her, like, her genuine care for Sage. Which also reminds me of when like leaving and Sage was like, Kelly was holding Sage, and he would like how she would just like hold him, and like the love that was like so genuine. That was important because leaving without him so many times like started to get really hard. Like, at first it was like, he needs to be here. Like, he's where he needs to be, and I understand he can't come home. I don't want to. But then after so long, it was like, they get to just leave. And, like, good for them, but when are we ever going to get to leave with him? But seeing, like, the love that they genuinely had for him was like huge to my peace and being able to leave and not like and be able to sleep semi decently at night. When we left, did you wheel me out in the wheelchair?
When we left,
I think I wanted you to bring me out. I think I remember talking about that, and then maybe we forgot to do that because I remember seeing because we were just like running.
Crew, right, the film crew was there.
Oh yeah.
When we left, when we got to walk out, so we walked out. But I think I did wheel you to a point, but then
I don't know.
We'll have to look at it. We'll have to look at that.
I feel like at that point. Then we just had gotten, like, just so happy to leave.
Yeah.
But also sad to leave, too, because then it was, like, a few different angles of, what am I going to do? I've had them always here to tell me what to do, and now I'm just going to go home and
have to figure it out.
And be a regular mom. Which was obviously something that I was very anxiously awaiting.
So back to the PICC line, the last PICC line.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It was on his head. And whenever
when the dressing was being changed, and it snapped, and they barely caught it. And if they didn't catch it, he would have had a heart attack because that would have pulled the PICC line into his heart because his heart beating is pulling. And the pool would have, as soon as it went in his heart, it would have gave him a heart attack. He would have died.
But they caught it.
It's amazing.
Thank you, Jesus.
And terrible. Amazing.
And so...
And that was just like a defective PICC line, pretty much. Like, I feel like because of where the placement was and the way it was flopping, like, if I would have had maybe like an idea that could happen, it was even something that had passed my mind that could potentially happen. Yeah, I probably would have been extra careful, but because I remember holding him and it like kind of flopping over.
Mm.
But it was always awkward holding him, no matter what. There was no like ever comfortable time of just sitting and holding him, because it was always like, oh, I got poop all over me, or
from the ileostomy bag.
Yeah, from the bag leaking, from the what do you call it? The bag leaking, the lines all over between his what are the ones that are just like placed on him? Not an EKG one, but like a regular, like for his heart, his
the little
oxygen, that's a pulse ox. So what did you say?
Like diodes that are put on.
Little sticky, the three, the green, black, and white. That like one, like I think on each side, and then on like the stomach.
I don't remember. I mean, I remember the wire. I remember the.
I don't remember what it's
cables,
called. Yeah.
But yeah. But okay, so following that was one of the. I don't remember which surgery it was. But one of the surgeries when he came out, it was really hard. It was really hard for me because when he woke up in post-op, like he was writhing in pain, like bad.
Oh, right.
And he was intubated.
I think that was the ice.
Well, he was intubated, and I could just see him like writhing in pain.
That was the eye surgery.
Oh, okay. And then screaming, but the screaming was silent.
Because we could see him crying, and that the tube was going down his throat, and and then we had to ask Dr. Agassi to give him pain, whatever pain, to stop his, because he was in pain.
And then one of the things is sometimes when you have new doctors, everybody has their own opinion of what the proper amount of pain medication is, or even how to anesthetize him going into it, right? Because some was the shot, some was the mask, and then he had different effects. So there was always like side effects. Like, remember when he did the mask and how he would be like really lethargic and like for a long period after the surgery? So we didn't want him to have the anesthesia by the gas.
I think you're talking about when they reconnected him with the gas.
Probably.
So going into surgery to reconnect. When it was in the next emergency, and it was November 30th. No, I'm sorry. It was October 30th.
Okay.
And that's when the PICC line snapped.
So then following that...
Then he had to get... After the PICC line snapped, then it was like, let's reattempt to do a PICC line. And then that failed, and then I think they reattempted it like 3 or 4 times when that happened overnight.
When did he have the NPO, or he couldn't eat anything for 3 weeks?
That's coming.
Okay.
Well,
I know there's a couple times.
So he couldn't have it like when he was like reconnected, and he also had it when he was dumping. He was dumping.
And dumping just means that when
he wasn't absorbing his nutrients from his
So he would just dump whatever
just
it was
come,
right
yeah.
out.
So it would go to his stomach, and then just pretty much came right out. And it normally, when it would come into his ostomy bag, it was yellow, like somewhat digested. When he was dumping, it was like, it looked like Coca-Cola in his bag, and it stunk so bad. Like the other one was nothing to the way that one smelled, like fermented, nasty, bad. And it's weird because like his stomach, right? And the distance that it had to get to that was like inches. So it was like happening in his stomach, where his stomach was just like, nope, don't want this, don't want this, and whatever it was doing, it was making him sick.
And I also remember what he had to go through once that PICC line snapped, because then they tried to do it again.
Yeah, and then I had asked, I wanted to help.
I remember that the last time that it happened at night.
Yeah.
And then they had to basically keep sticking him,
like
and it was like 45 minutes of just straight getting stuck. And then he couldn't do it, so they waited. And then they did it for another 45 minutes trying to, and I couldn't be there. I couldn't watch. Were you there when they were doing it?
I don't know about that time.
And then they had to do it again first thing in the morning. So the third time,
when Nora wasn't there.
Right.
When Nora was like, she'll come back and do it in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And
then she couldn't either.
And then we had to schedule surgery for the Broviac.
And now it's the Broviac.
But it was the Broviac and the takedown.
So there was a 2-in-1, and I think.
Well, they did the circ too.
And the circumcision, so 3-in-1. So the. My brain just went sideways.
3 surgeries for what, or 3 procedures and
so
1
what the
surgery.
Broviac is, so what they had to do for a Broviac is they punctured a hole in his chest, they made an incision in his neck where they put basically they put the camera down, and then they tied the Broviac to his supravena cava directly. And so it was like a PICC line that was installed.
Yeah.
That's what a Broviac is.
And the Broviac went in, because it was setting outside, and the Broviac went like almost through like a straw. Like, actually, I think it's on this side. I think it's like right here. And you could see it still, like the little straw size scar to go down. And then his other thing is, I think, somewhere around here that they went in. Is it right?
It was like at the base of his neck.
Yeah. And that actually was sooner than we were expecting to do surgery, obviously, for the takedown. That was cool too, because we got to walk down with like almost to the freaking operating room and be like part of the caravan down.
That was the final.
Almost.
Well, right. Except for them
pulling the
pulling
Broviac
it out.
The pulling the Broviac was like less than an hour. I want to say it was like 40 minutes. In and out. And I was like sat down at the cafeteria, and I remember you weren't there. You couldn't be there for that. So I'm like just there, and I'm like, I'm going to go to the cafeteria and I'm going to eat something, or I'm going to do this, and then they called me, and I was like, they're already done. So I like ran up, and then he was already there, and he was so lively and so like ready to go, and he looked like a baby then. So that was like, but when he came out of he came out of that surgery for the takedown of his intestines when he got the Broviac. When he came out of that, that's when he was throwing up. That's when you see, like, there's a picture of Melinda holding him, and he's crying, and he looks so, like, not happy. And it was, like, green throw up. It was really, and it almost looked like digested came back up.
Yeah.
Because it was green. Yeah, That was sad. Because then you could hear him cry. And you know he's in pain. You know the pain that he's been through. And that's like... But I think that was probably like the nausea because we had tried to feed him and he couldn't keep it down. That was our next step of moving forward. He has to be able to drink however many mLs of a bottle, and it started out like probably like 3 mLs or something, 2 mLs, something
Tiny.
Yeah. And then I remember we had a different doctor and they like jumped it up that day. Cause Dr. Abbasi was like slow and steady. And then I don't remember who it was, but they were like, all right, let's jump over, let's do a full, or what, like a 6 ounces or something, 3 ounces. And I was like, oh, cool.
It's a big jump.
Yeah, but like, hey, we're going to try it. And then it was like straight downhill, and absolutely not.
Yeah, and then that video of that Kaiser did at the end, and and I see it, and I had mentioned like it's like you're on a roller coaster, but there's no support, and it's fast, and it goes down and it comes up, and you never know if you're gonna fall or not, and it's like that was almost every day of the 7 months. It was like always
every bit of every day, like going to sleep at night, waking up in the morning, getting the phone calls of the rounds, getting the emergency hurry up and get over here right now calls. Those were the hardest, being at least an hour away without traffic.
Yep. And we all know how wonderful traffic is in LA, and the 91 and 605.
That whole route was like a terrible route.
Right?
It worked out.
So, let's see what else. Obviously, fast forward today, he's 10 years old. He's played a bunch of different sports. He doesn't even wear glasses. He hasn't had any digestive issues. He is a miracle. And so,
he's freaking smart.
Yeah.
Sweet. He's a really good kid.
Yeah. So we really, really, really won the lottery on that whole thing.
Yeah. Any hashtag X24 weeker, like he's like that hope that I was given from watching or looking up those hashtags. And this was like the beginning of Instagram, I want to say. It was not like the Instagram
like now,
but it was like getting to click on that was in the instant I could see a 24 weeker that's like fine.
Remember when we had his baby shower and all the nurses came?
We had that big room and that place was packed.
That was pretty cool.
He needs to see that. Everybody from every angle of everything was people from my mom's work, friends of friends, my grandma's friends, all the nurses coming out, and because was a long way this way, and for them to have a day off and spend it with us again.
Yeah, you didn't realize like the people that were following Sage's thing, through Facebook, and he had a lot of people praying for him. He had a lot of people praying for him. There were prayer groups and
everywhere.
Yeah, and so it's just there are a lot of shitty situations that happen, but if you can hold on long enough, there's always a payoff.
The day that we're going home with him, and they threw us a party.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was really cool. I was not expecting. Well, actually, hold on, back up, because also the night before, or the day, or maybe a couple days before, I think it was like Friday, and he went home on Monday. And all of the nurses start sending me pictures of him walking around the unit with Sage.
And he literally, the day before, like, but he, okay, walking around the unit, but he was still connected. So the very first time that I got to actually take, well, so that was the other thing. I got reprimanded a few times because I was picking him up and, like, because I'd like to, you know, move him around and throw him around, and it made everybody really nervous. But I feel like in hindsight, that helped him more than anything else.
Melinda says that she encourages the parents to do that sort of stuff with them, because when you like, also
you mean after because
you.
before, yeah, after me, because
Yeah.
before that they were like,
don't do that. Yeah, you're gonna don't be careful with my baby. Yeah. But literally that is what she would have them do, because she swears that's what they need is that movement, that for him to leave there and not have like autism, the sensory issues, like he should have all of
glasses, digestive
that was the one
issues.
thing that, like, the doctor, when he came to go round on Sage, the eye doctor, and he was like, he's gonna wear really, 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 really thick glasses, and I'm like, would you say really anymore?
Thanks, Doc. What are you trying to do there?
Terrible. But that's just like the doctor when I right before I had him, and he's like 10% chance of survival.
Yeah.
He's not gonna live a normal life, and what do you want to do? And it's like, who talks like that? But you have to, because what if he did wear really, 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 really thick glasses and they didn't say that? And I'm over here thinking rainbows and butterflies and we're all good, and he's not.
Right.
So that's something that I think for sure then was not something I wanted to hear. But for sure now, it's something that you gotta hear, because it's potential truth. And I would rather know the worst case than not. That's a big thing to not, because that is not meant for everybody. The NICU was not for everybody.
Yeah, we've seen
a lot of people they don't make it through there as couples that have real mental issues, not just as couples, but as like themselves, and being depressed and unhappy and not being able to deal with the stress in there. The stress is definitely up there in there, but also comes along with all of the miracles that we got to experience firsthand. And like not just with Sage, but also like everybody around, because you're so close to so many other babies. And like, I watched babies die and come back, like in front of my eyes, when they brought their crash cart, and they're every single, and it's amazing. That was something else too, to like see how well everybody at that unit worked together in Downey. Like, everybody was doing everything they could.
Yeah.
That one, like, that wasn't even Sage, and I was like, holy crap. Like, and those parents were there. They just left. They just left to like go eat, you know. So when they came back, and I'm like, I'm so happy they weren't there for what I just saw, because that was And they had to do that with Sage when we weren't there. And I don't exactly remember when that was, but thank God we weren't there to watch that, because that is not something you just want to stand in there and, like, I watched that kid's heart go from, like it was going, and then it was, like, here, and that was actually when one and Dr. Gandhi were talking about Omega Man and the lipids and how to schedule them, and I was like, he can't talk. He needs help. I totally froze. I think that, and actually the nurse that was taking care of the baby, and the baby was not a baby that had problems. Like, he was a pretty decent, stable kid. But just because he was stable throughout didn't mean he was good. You know? Like, that was definitely not a... And I don't know if he had just stopped breathing, like a forgot to breathe thing, because he was a pretty stable kid. I remember that one.
The NICU, you just don't ever know.
Yeah, that's the roller coaster.
Yeah, and it goes from normal to like before you.
And the way that they can freaking work together, like an orchestra. Mm-hmm. Everybody just doing what they need to do when they need to do it.
Yeah. And you know, for every story of Sage who made it through and everything, yes, went bad, but then he ended up pulling out, there's also a story of kids that don't make it, you know. And when we were there, that happened several times, but that's a part of life, and it's a very hard thing to cope with and deal. And we missed, thank God, but that is a real thing that people do have to deal with. And so and the reason I'm mentioning that is because when we're scared because Sage is in a surgery, right? And then you have people coming out of the woodwork, they're like, my kid was preemie, and then look at him now, and he's happy and healthy and strong and Yeah. And then we're like, well, what if that's not our kid? You know, that's good. I'm happy for you that your kid is like that, but what if it's not our kid? What if he doesn't, you know? So
he hit every branch on the way down.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. But it also works the other way, too, because everything that went wrong also was followed by everything that was supposed to happen. As messed up as it was, it happened because it needed to happen for this to happen. Like, from the ride with the ambulance ride to the ambulance ride to the what is it, the thing for his lungs, and the x-ray that they did. Mm-hmm. When it was like a terrible, he's intubated, to thank God he was intubated, or we wouldn't have caught that so soon, and he would have really been, he could have been seriously sick, and like a higher chance of dying because of the sepsis. And when would they have caught it? They probably would have caught it, but when and how far gone would it be?
Yep. So, I mean, where do you end the story? Because it's still happening, you know?
So then we have that. We have that. What do you call it? We have the party. We get pictures of everybody walking around the unit with him. We get there. We're able to walk away from the isolate, and it was like the greatest thing. One of the many greatest things. Because walking outside was one of the greatest things, but the next step to the greatest things was walking or getting to walk away from that bed and to hold him like a regular kid.
Yeah. I think that's what I was saying. It was the day before he was released is the actual first time I got to throw him up and down.
Yeah, like
with
you
nothing
did like
attached.
one of those sort of things.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, they didn't like that.
it was
Right? I don't know.
no. What
But
they
they
didn't
probably-
like was the pictures of you tossing him up. That's what everybody gave you crap about. I don't know about in the unit, but afterwards, when we had family pictures and you tossed him up, and Melinda's like, she's gonna get you. And I'm like, get him. No, so then our last day, and they have that surprise party, and Sage could have probably gone home, like, before, like, he probably could have gone Friday home. But they were planning that party, and they wanted to all be there, so they, like, prolonged it slightly. I think that's what happened. I don't know that's what happened.
I don't know.
I think
I don't know about that.
I
but
think I'm gonna ask.
yeah.
But they had that party. Candace showed up. My mom was there, right? I think my mom was there.
I think so.
There's pictures I think with Candace, but that was, yeah, my mom had to be there. That was great to get to Lindsay, Preston, me, and you, and getting to sit in the car, go walk out with Sage, go buckle him in, and that picture of the kids like looking at him, and we're like, we're going home. Along with all the camera crew that was like at every angle of Sage going home.
The triumph.
Oh, that was a 215 days, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So when we brought him outside, he was like 120 days then. Something like that. 215 days. And then we got home and he got to sleep in his bed. And then we got to look at him at home and see him breathe. That was like, I remember one of the things that I was like, I'm home, he's breathing, and like his arms were up and when he was sleeping, and I'm just watching him, and I like see his belly moving, and it's like I can breathe now.
Yep.
And we were a family, all in the same place. It took a long time to get there.
It did. But we made it. And then now, I mean, we've made it through some other situations too. But that's another story.
No, then the next part is the little bit of the aftermath of the preemie kid. Between the strawberries.
Oh.
No, this like the blockage that he had, the quarter he ate, and they had to get it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been some scary situations.
And they were like, "Oh, don't worry, he'll pass it." And I'm like, "This isn't right. He can't eat a quarter and have that scar tissue. We worked too long for this connection to work." And then Dr. Abbasi's like, "No, it can't. Don't, like, why did you wait to tell me? Take him here. I'm going to call whoever."
Mm-hmm.
And we were there 6 o'clock in the morning. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning the next almost 24 hours later. when they finally when they finally got him into the emergency, it needed to be done. There wasn't like we could schedule it and wait for it because they didn't want it to digest because it was gonna get stuck. Like the odds of it getting stuck, and then we'd have to surgically go in there and remove it versus it's in his stomach and they could pull it out.
Right. Well, I mean, I think we hit most of the things. There's obviously stuff that we haven't touched on the whole time. It was just from every angle. Those were the highlights, but in the highlights, there were a lot of other situations and dynamic problems that we had to overcome. But I think that what helped us is that I think we both had hope, and I think we both gave each other the space to handle it the way we thought we should handle it. Like, I felt that you cared about how I felt and that you were supporting me, like the way that I've looked at everything, and that made a big difference. So, you know, you gave me space to handle it in my own way. I think that a lot of times in situations, people maybe get a little too controlling, or because they're freaking out, right? And they're like, and then they start barking at each other and then start blaming each other, and then it's this whole animosity, and because you really are worried about this, but you're coming at it in a different way, like how we communicate. But I think we did a good job, like supporting each other and loving each other and loving Sage. Mwah. Mwah. So the whole Move podcast. People move because of love, and you cover the first part of that M, and it spells love. And so what we're doing is hoping, you know, M is making a difference in other people's lives, like the nurses and the doctors and the respiratory therapists and the admin and our family, how they all made a difference in our lives. And offer up your time, talents, and gifts. The fact that we're here talking about this, that you're sharing the story. I know it's hard. I know you don't like to cry and show, you know, but you're doing it, and find victory in the small things. And I mean, this is a big thing, but he was a small thing.
He was a very small thing. A pound and 11 ounces. And 13 inches. 13 and a quarter.
Well, and then the last part is E, and that's encourage others. So, if you're out there, you're struggling through some kind of an issue, move, encourage others, and eventually it will come back. Things are going to happen that they're supposed to happen, because I believe that we have lessons that we have to learn. And you can't really learn the lesson that you're supposed to unless you feel the feeling that is associated with it, like helplessness. Helplessness, nobody likes to feel. But I think it's the foundation of faith. And I'm not somebody that says I know everything about anything, or anything about everything. but I feel like the biggest problems that I had in life has led me to the best insights. And I know that we've grown together. We're, I think, a lot better than we were. And
100%.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were good. But now we're like 200%.
Yeah. Now more better.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, the biggest lesson that I learned is gratitude, like the importance of gratitude, and gratitude even in the trenches, because you don't know what's at work, like what's happening, but something good is going to come of
it's
it.
all happening for a reason. And not for the phrase of that, but for it doesn't need to make sense. It's not going to make sense, but it will make sense at some point.
That makes sense. But
Your reason for the move idea started with Sage.
yes. So yes, it did. And
I mean,
so okay, so I think it was after like the 5th surgery, or it was somewhere in that ballpark. And at the time I was running the experiential marketing company. We had a lot of problems making payroll, paying the rent, having jobs where the people worked, and having the money to pay for the hotels and the gas, and it was a bunch of financial problems. And at the time I was right in the middle of all that, and at the same time not knowing if Sage is going to make it out of this surgery. And then another thing happened with Preston at the time that was a horrible situation. And it's like I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking about, like, God, what did I do? what and feeling numb, where it's like I just don't know what to do here. And so I did this little thought exercise where I thought, if I was on my deathbed and I'm an old man and I'm about to die and I have one last breath, and I'm looking at myself sitting in the hospital with the vitals ding 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 going on over there, and Sage is right here not knowing and dealing with those problems, what advice would I give myself in my last breath? And that I thought about it. I had my journal and I wrote, dare to dream, period. Wonder, period. And be inspired. And therein lies the power to change the world. And it's a quote, it's not whatever, but dare to dream, it broadens your horizons when you're dealing with issues. Wonder makes you go in deep and think about, the more that you look at an orange, the more layers of things that you see an orange has. It's not just an orange. And be inspired. And then I had this epiphany about a week later, like, then move. And then I wrote my journal, then capital M, capital O, capital V, capital E, underlined. So dare to dream, broaden your horizons. Wonder, go deep. Be inspired, so you feel that. Then move. Because if you don't move, you might as well be taking a nap or having a dream. And so still, big deal. It's a quote. Anybody can come up with a quote. Doesn't matter. It was my quote, so there's something, but that's it. But then my sister comes into town, and she's helping me. And we're standing across the street from our house, waiting on Preston to come home. And she's like, Scotty, God's put something on my heart, and I know that you're the person I have to tell this to. And she's like, I know that you're having a hard time and busy and you got a lot of things, but I know that this is something God has put on my heart to tell you. And I was like, what is it, Laura? I thought she was going to tell me she did something wrong. And that's not normal for her.
No, not Laura.
So, and then she goes, it's move. And I said, what? She said, it's move. And she's like, if you're in a rut, the only way you can get out is to move. If somebody's going to hit you, you better move. And then she said, if you look at the word move and cover the first part of the M, it spells love. And people move because of love. And they're moved because of love. And then she said, how do you move? M, make a difference in other people's lives. O, offer up your time, talents, and gifts. V, find victory in the small things. E, encourage others. And I was blown away because I cannot even believe what she's telling me right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come with me, Laura. And I put my arm around her, and we walked right across the street back to the house. I opened the door. We walked in. My journal was sitting right there. I opened the journal, and I said, explain that, Laura. Capital MOVE underline.
Yeah.
She's like, it's God, Scotty.
Duh.
And I'm like, yeah, it has to be. But, dude, like,
yeah.
that is something that, you know, I'm not the brightest person in the room, but I'm paying attention to that because that is a coincidence. And if you talk to, you know, Ellie, our Jewish buddy Ellie, he says that in the Hebrew language, there's no such thing as the word coincidence, right?
Yeah.
So move. Well, son, bitch, we better move. So, anyway, that's, I think also at the end of the whole move concept is that it is an important word. It does give you direction if you're lost, if you're depressed, if you're not sure what to do in life and you're trying to make it. Think about that word, move, because it will point you in the direction that you need to go.
Yeah.
Who can you make a difference? You know, anyway, without beating a dead horse. So, I think we'll call it quits. And anybody that's listening, thank you for tuning in. And we'll see you or hear you, or you'll hear us on the flip side. So, love you, but we gotta leave you.